Oh, we might as well get started. It's midday, so I'm just going to do a brief introduction. Kia ora koutou katoa, nau mai ki tēnei zui, I te tuatahi me mihi ki te tangata whenua o Aotearoa. So let's just welcome you all to the webinar and just a brief acknowledgement of the Indigenous people of Aotearoa on whose land we are today. Well, some of us, most of us are today. There might be a few people from overseas, but great. So my name is Grace Thomas-Edmund. I'm a principal here in the commercial team at AJ Park and really happy to welcome you to this webinar. We are very, very lucky to have our two speakers from Whittaker's today talking about their delicious and innovative products. So we've got Megan Sinclair, who's the product development manager. So she actually comes up with these products. So it's very exciting. And Tamara Lindsay, who works on the marketing side at Whittaker's. So she can talk about the story and the relationships a bit more. So can we just flip to the next slide, Tamara? So just very briefly what we'll cover. So Megan and Tamara are going to talk first, and they're going to go through some of the Whittaker's product collaborations from their point of view. And then I'll finish off talking about what might be the more boring half of the seminar, but the more legal side of these relationships. So I will hand over to Tamara and Megan now. Oh, sorry, two more things. If you're having any issues or you can't hear us or anything, just pop something in the chat. And then if you want to ask questions, you can use the Q&A function. What we're going to do is we're going to have so if you've got questions for Megan and Tamara, put those in while they're talking, and then we're going to do a quick Q&A session when they've finished their part. Just so we can make sure that the questions for them go to them, and then I'll talk, and then we'll do another quick Q&A session at the end. If you've got any questions for me, so that'd be great. Cool. So I'll let Tamara and Megan speak now.
Good. Hey, thank you so much for having us. Thanks for the welcome, Grace. We're excited to share a bit with you today about Whittaker's collaboration projects, and my favourite part is hearing the tales of how some of these incredible products were developed, and also kind of how these licensing and setup works on the collaboration side. So just as an introduction, Whittaker's collaborations are any project where we combine forces with another brand to deliver a product or campaign together. Collaborations are a core activity in our calendar, and they enable us to refresh the category, demonstrate ingredient qualifiers, have a bit of fun and a bit of innovativeness, surprise and delight our chocolate lovers outside of the chocolate aisle, show up in other categories and markets, and bring life to our good, honest chocolate values. They've been disruptive in enabling us to introduce really unprecedented activity to the chocolate category. And some of my favourite examples include the L&P block, the Lewis Road Creamery chocolate milk, and the Tip Top Jelly Tip block. We're big believers at Whittaker's that 1 + 1 can be greater than 2. That is when we work collaboratively together with other trusted and loved New Zealand brands, we can truly create a bit of magic together that has a greater impact than each of our brands can have on their own. We select really strong company to keep, be it iconic Kiwi market leaders such as Tip Top or Griffins, or smaller agile startups like Garage Project and Lewis Road Creamery when they first started up. The collaborations offer us the chance to lean into the more premium side of our brand with 125 years of local manufacturing and beans to bar production all under the one roof, or to bring out that more light-hearted, fun, nimble and playful side of our brand as well. Whatever the project, we've got to have a strong connection, shared values, and we've got to like each other and deliver on the business objectives as well. The first one I've got up is the first of kind of the 3 general categories that our collaborations fall into. So the first is those where we team up with another brand to celebrate their iconic ingredients in our own chocolate block, such as this year's Hundreds and Thousands, which we're very delighted to finally be able to bring back after 7 years, and last year's Bundaberg block. Another type is where we share the Whittaker's name and supply chocolate for another brand to use in their own products. So this includes the iconic Lewis Road Creamery chocolate milk and Garage Project chocolate beer. Our third category that we see our collabs in is partnerships where we're able to support local community organisations and charities where we have a strong connection with them and shared values. So this year we brought out 2 Plunket blocks where 20 cents from each block sale went to Plunket. And each year we have Kiwis for Kiwi where we support the Save the Kiwi organisation. A bit of time travel. When we consider our collaborations over the years, one of the first that comes to mind for us is always that infamous partnership with Lewis Road Creamery that kicked off in 2014. The hype saw limits of 1 bottle per store, so a nationwide sellout, queues out the door, and even people chasing delivery vans down the streets. It was liquid gold, and to this day remains one of the most successful product launches in New Zealand FMCG history. It became market leader in flavoured milk within 3 weeks of launch. And it was one of the first times that we realised that we'd underestimated the power of the Whittaker's brand and had severely underestimated the demand the product would have. We could not keep up. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like everybody has a chocolate milk story from 2014 and from that absolute excitement around it at the time. And over the years, we've since done many successful extensions to the chocolate milk together with Lewis Road.
Okay, so kia ora. My name is Megan Sinclair, as Tamara said, and I get to make, taste and produce products at Whittaker's Chocolate. And I have been here for over 13 years now, so I got to work on one of the very first collaborations, which was the Lewis Road chocolate milk. So like Tamara said, if we go back in time nearly 13 years ago, it was a very small company, Lewis Road. They worked with co-manufacturers, which was a new relationship for us. So when we were thinking about this product and this relationship, we needed to understand co-manufacturing for a start. That meant we had to understand their capabilities and their equipment. We soon found out very quickly that they didn't have chocolate melting capacity, which meant that we had to be creative and think outside of the box. So we needed to think of another chocolate format that would work in the milk. This meant that there was a lot of sharing of IP, and in the early days that was a very small company, so it was a one-way conversation with myself and Lewis Road and their co-manufacturer. They wanted to be very generous in the inclusion in the chocolate, which works well for us and our values and beliefs, but we had to, from a technical perspective, we had to think about the high fat, the high sugar, cocoa butter, compatible with milk fat and the cocoa content. That then formed the sediment that has become well known with the Lewis Road product. And we had numerous conversations around, was this premium or not? It now seems all very obvious that it is premium, but we didn't really know that at the time. So that was an interesting little discussion. But it was, if I think back in time, it was easy because they were small, they were flexible, they were willing to be transparent with us, and vice versa. So the relationship worked very seamlessly, in fact. The one thing that we also were new to was the chilled section of the supermarket. So this was something we really needed to think about because it was a short shelf life product, and with that there's risks involved. And this is one thing that we really needed to understand with a collaboration product, is that we take on their risk as well. So we needed to be comfortable with this, but vice versa. When you share the success, but you also share the risk. And that was something that we had lengthy conversations about, and needed to also have transparency over their quality systems and have our quality team up there looking at their co-manufacturing environment. As it turns out, it was a fantastic product, and as Tamara said, we were all very surprised with the success of the product. Delighted, of course.
It was an incredible product. Yeah, contrary to some theories suggested, it was not FOMO marketing, and we would not recommend FOMO marketing. You need national distribution from day one, and we had no idea as to the demand it would receive, but certainly not FOMO marketing. Thank you. So moving on, another piece we did was with Tip Top launching Jelly Tip Block in 2015. This block actually took us to the market leadership position in chocolate block for the first time. So it was a really big year for us. We found that the Jelly Tip Block was a really fitting tribute to Tip Top's own ice cream, which, like Whittaker's chocolate, has been loved by New Zealanders for decades.
Okay, so the development process with this one was slightly different. We had had experience with a mashup with the L&P product. So first conversations around this product was looking at Tip Top's biggest selling products. So that's lemonade popsicle, fruit dew, choc bar, all the iconic Tip Top products. But when you think about them, they don't really translate into an obvious ice cream, an obvious chocolate block, sorry. So then, of course, Jelly Tip came to mind, because who doesn't love a Jelly Tip in the summer? So we started thinking about this concept and how you could deconstruct it. Once again, it all seems so obvious now, but you know, taking the white chocolate and turning that into the iconic French vanilla ice cream, and then of course coming to the jelly. We looked at both options, getting somebody to make the jelly for us, but then we also knew that we had the equipment here to make the jelly ourselves. And we're very much of the attitude, if we can do it, we should do it. So then that became my technical challenge and our process engineers' technical challenge to work out how to make the jelly. Close collaborations with our ingredient suppliers, teaching us how to make the jelly. There were conversations around a jelly formatted ice cream, jelly formatted chocolate, because until this product, really the only jelly filled chocolate product was Turkish Delight, which has always been around. But we wanted to be very true representation to the Jelly Tip ice cream, which meant that we had to really concentrate on the jelly, making sure that the jelly flavor, texture, color was an exact match to the Tip Top ice cream. I, of course, think we nailed it. However, there were a few fails along the line, along the process. You know, with a jelly, you have to have the jelly sitting at the correct time in line with manufacturing. So if you gel the product too soon and then you have to deposit it, you break up the gel. We needed the gel to be a nice firm set, exactly the same as the ice cream. And then, of course, if you gel too late in the process, we have to back off the chocolate on the filled product. So you need it to be firm to enable yourselves to be able to do that. So a lot of manufacturing challenges along the way. It was such a fun product to work on, and I think we executed the ice cream from a taste, flavor and texture perspective really well, and it's proven to also be a great product for us, and it stood the test of time. I think it was in our top 20 for
been there for years. Top 20 for years. We launched it as a limited edition in Australia last year as well, which enabled us to make some ranging gains there too.
So from a technical perspective, I think this one really was worth taking the time and effort to do it properly, because it has become such a valuable product for us.
We had a few projects with Tip Top over the years and executed across both of our environments. So more recently, Tip Top launched the Peanut Slab ice cream bar. So that was last year, and it's seen incredible success in the route trade, so such as petrol stations and dairies, and that packaging strongly reflects the Whittaker's Peanut Slab, and the recipe uses Whittaker's chocolate in the shell.
This one was quite a different collaboration process for me, having worked on the likes of Lewis Road and the Jelly Tip chocolate block, where I had been very heavily involved in the product development. I'd been a one-woman technologist for many years. So working with Tip Top was a new experience for me, because they have a large and highly accomplished development team who took on most of the development work for this. So this one was different. We needed to understand because we were supplying the chocolate to Tip Top, we needed to understand chocolate in a frozen product. Freezer products can have a 24-month shelf life, whereas our shelf life on ambient chocolate is 12 months. So we needed to get our heads around that and what that looked like for our product. So that, once again, is conversations with their quality team, our quality team, and the technologists. So this one was very much about back and forth communications on the tasting profile, because we are very, very protective of our peanut slab. It needs to be generous in peanuts. It needs to emulate the exact flavour profile of the ambient chocolate slab, sorry. So many tastings, high level of communication, but probably less hands-on development for myself. But nonetheless, it still was a great product, and we were very happy with the representation of the peanut slab.
It was quite a task you had on your hands, Megan. That peanut slab recipe has been exactly the same since it was first created by Morris Whittaker over 50 years ago. So it's been the exact same for the last 50 years, and we've taken great care of it ever since.
Yeah. We're very protective of our peanut slab.
Another collaboration product from 2020 was the Bundaberg Brewed Ginger Caramel Block. So we considered it the best Trans-Tasman get-together ever, and we launched it at a time when Kiwi and Aussie mates and family couldn't get together in person. So the block became something that people here and across the ditch could come together and have a moment over, despite not being right together. This collaboration allowed both of us to really celebrate the proud family owner and operatorship. The Fleming family founded Bundaberg and still run it to this day, as do the Whittaker family with Whittaker's Chocolates. It's now sitting with the third and fourth generation of the family, all based in Porirua. What I love about this block is it actually uses real ginger brew from Bundaberg Brewed Ginger Drinks.
Yes, so thanks, Tamara. This one was fun for me because watching global trends, we've seen a lot of probiotics, prebiotics becoming extremely trendy. So it was something to watch and was definitely on our radar from a trends perspective. So when we started looking at the types of products that could become, we looked at the iconic Kiwi baking mashups. So was this Cafe Ginger Crunch? We made one product that tasted exactly like a ginger kiss, which everyone was loving, but you can't go past a good caramel slice from the cafe. So this was where we took this product. We tried the biscuit element, but everyone was really loving because we've created a good creamy caramel base, everyone was loving the flowing creamy caramel base with the ginger inclusion. Then, of course, it came down to how we got the ginger brew into the caramel. We obviously needed to work with Bundaberg to work out a brew concentrate, because we obviously don't want to be shipping around the liquid ginger beer drink. It makes no sense to be shipping around the water, so we wanted to make this concentrate that was true to both products. So we needed to work out that, but also, where was I going with this? Oh yes, to get the right balance of ginger. Here we go. So ginger can be quite a polarizing flavor. People either love it or hate it, but it's my job as a product developer to make sure that people who don't love ginger can still appreciate the product. And I think that is what we got in the end. So when we talk about a polarizing flavor, it's about balancing out that flavor that people won't love or hate it. They will want to try the product. And that's exactly what we wanted to achieve. That's where I was going with that.
Yeah, I love ginger. It was divisive here at Whittaker's as well. The votes on more ginger or less.
Yes. And that's where you have to stay true to your product development head and go, no, this is right. This is the perfect balance, and go with that.
So another collaboration product we had in 2020 was when Garage Project released the second edition of the chocolate beers in white and dark chocolate stout. So this was another delicious one to be a part of. Like the first edition, they were both a huge success at sale, and the products were a complete sellout both here and in Australia. At first we were a little bit nervous about entering into a collaboration with an alcohol category, but it was outweighed by liking the idea of working with Garage Project more. They're also local Wellington. They're deeply creative and they're really good at their craft. So we really liked that company. We keep fit with them. It allowed us to play in a new space and reach a different audience and distribution channels. They lovingly call their customers their beer nerds, and it was someone that we wanted to connect with outside of our usual target market as well.
So like Tamara said, this one was a lot of fun. Who doesn't get to love coming to work and trying beer innovations? It was something very different after working on chocolate for so many years. So it was fun to be to team up with another innovative brand. I think we're both known for our creativity and innovation, so this made it really fun. So we started with the good old brainstorm session with Joss and Pete, looking at trends in both categories and how we could mash them up, and that was very fun and inspiring, of course. The first one was to create the 33% creamy milk chocolate beer. And here we needed to ensure that we got the 33% cocoa claim. And so we needed to make sure that the cocoa content and the cocoa butter didn't interfere with the fermentation process of making the beer. This is where I left this up to the very clever brewers at Garage Project, and of course they nailed it. The fun around the next two products was, of course, creating a white chocolate, which once again the clever brewers at Garage Project were able to do using lactose, so that you had this white colour, as well as the dark chocolate using Canterbury malt to make the dark representative of our dark chocolate. So the other fun part of this was the nitro pour that created the creamy head to the glass, and this was another extension of a creamy chocolate product. So it was quite a deconstruction, and the flavors were quite wild and wacky. I think the white chocolate was infused with vanilla, golden raspberry, Gisborne lemon. They were pretty out there, but so much fun, and just a great taste. All three were just great tasting products for different beer occasions, which was also fun to understand the beer consumer.
Coming through to the present day. So this year's represented 125 years of making chocolate for Whittakers, and many of those years have been all at our one factory in Porirua, and all of our crafting is beans to bar. So we roast all of our beans here right through to that final moulded and wrapped block at the end. It's also represented the beginning of a partnership with Pix Peanut Butter at a time when supporting local has been as big a priority as ever. Collaborating with Pix was a real no-brainer for us. Like us, they roast their raw ingredients themselves and on site. Theirs is peanuts, ours is cocoa beans, and they manufacture through to the final product on site as well. Following the collaboration on the peanut chocolate butter, where Pix added both our creamy milk and our dark Ghana to their product, we created the peanut butter and jelly block, and we wanted to put a quintessentially Kiwi spin on the classic snack staple.
So yes, so this one, we'd been making our own peanut butter products successfully for about 8 years. And like I say, we also had the capacity and the capabilities to make jelly. So from a global trends perspective, we've always played around with the very American product idea of peanut butter and jelly. So this seemed a really good opportunity to push that trend and see how it could play out. Obviously, we wanted to change up the jelly to make it more like a Nelson boysenberry jam. to be in keeping with the whole peanut butter and jam sandwich. We did this using a boysenberry concentrate from Nelson, which imparted the colour and the flavour that we were able to take the jelly that we were already making, but change it up and make it into a boysenberry jelly with the colour and the flavour of Nelson boysenberries. Then it was more a conversation around how the two halves would play out. The idea being to sandwich the two together to emulate the product idea of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. This was a fun, playful idea around manufacturing, but the manufacturing constraints were that we had to ensure that the correct orientation was wrapped in the correct orientation of the label. Numerous conversations about this, but of course we managed to work it out. The fun idea here too is that you buy one chocolate block and you can share that chocolate block. So the people in your family who only want to eat the jelly can only eat the jelly, the peanut, and then of course sandwich the two together. So multiple options for sharing with a family block. So this just spoke to so many of our values of good, wholesome, quality ingredients, family sharing, playful and fun, as well as premium quality. So we're really happy with this one.
I think a job you did really well on the peanut butter and jelly flavour development was being able to get that perfect balance of the roasted nutty flavour and the really tart sweet jelly too.
Yeah, well, thanks for tasting numerous times and giving feedback. Tamara is one of my, what I call super tasters, and she's very good.
It's a very hard job. One Friday in the product development of this one, we'd run it through the factory and realised it had come out as jelly and peanut butter block. So we spent conversations at length tossing up whether we could go to market with jelly and peanut butter. Cool. Yeah, thank you. That's our piece for now.
Great, cool. So thanks for sharing some of your exciting collaborations. Looks like you guys have been having a lot of fun with it. We've had a few questions come through. So the first one is specific to the Pix peanut butter and jelly collab. Was there any discussion on putting both flavours into one square, and why were the flavours separated?
Go. So my take on it, and this was going through kind of the journey with getting it to run in the factory and the manufacturing piece, was that we'd cracked manufacturing it so that you could have it in two halves of the block, and we explored putting two flavours in the one pit, but felt there was really legs to this concept of there being three blocks in one and having the peanut butter and the jelly. It sort of
seemed a bit obvious.
Yeah.
And when our process engineer said to us that he could do it, once again, if we can do it, we should do it. So we'd never thought about doing two different flavours in the same block, but it just seemed more innovative and more creative.
Yeah, we love pushing the boundaries. Probably everybody's heard the phrase zigging when others zag by now, but we do try to operate with that. We look at how far can we push something, how unexpected can we make something. So I think I got many personal emails about the block format, but in this case, yeah, it was a deliberate choice to introduce three fillings in a block and to encourage people to play with their food.
Two fillings,
and,
yeah.
Two fillings, three combinations, and encourage people to play with their food and make the sandwich, which we felt had a really easy cut through in the communications as well.
And not to say we wouldn't do two fillings in one pit further down the track if the product idea was there.
Cool. Nice. So the next question, we've had a lot of people interested in actually doing collabs with you guys. So does Whittaker's normally reach out to brands for collaboration or vice versa? And how is the conversation initiated?
So it generally comes up pretty organically. A lot of brands do reach out to us, and we're lucky that we have a lot of kind of friends in the industry with other brands as well. So everyone kind of comes about, it's kind of a different origin story for each project really. For us, it's pretty simple criteria of the collaborating partner must be kind of world-class in what they do. We like to partner with premium to maintain kind of our premium positioning, and we like to do something different. So we've seen heaps of collaborations in FMCG, particularly over the last 10 years. So we look at how can we do something that's truly unexpected, something that really can bring out our playful and fun and nimble side, but that also lets the premium qualities of both brands shine. Another thing is anything that gives life to us being able to share our good honest chocolate values around ethical manufacturing and around sustainability, and something that where we can showcase our family values. So the Whittaker family still own and run the chocolate factory here. Those are always something we look at for.
Yeah, and I'll add to that from Tamara obviously is coming more from a brand perspective, but myself working in ingredients, we obviously have our artisan collection in the 100 gram, and I really do rely on ingredient suppliers contacting myself and letting me know that they've got this ingredient available, which I really recommend to anybody who's listening to do that via our website, because that is how we find, I can find an ingredient like Black Doris plum or sea salt caramel. We need people to let us know that they're working on these products, but then also they need to understand that the volume has to be there, the quality has to be there. They have to jump through a few hoops to get approved for use by us, and that's quite different to the brand idea.
But that artisan collection is something that you led the development of about 6 years ago now, and it's something we're really proud of for celebrating kind of local New Zealand artisan producers.
Yeah,
and it's something
so we
can do that others can't.
We'd like to keep continuing to do that, so we rely on those suppliers contacting us.
Fantastic, great. And the final question sort of leads on to what Grace is going to be talking about, but it's great to see examples of two commercial parties working well to combine your technology. How easy were the discussions to bring your respective IP to the table, and how did you decide who owns any resulting IP? So Grace might be relevant for her as well.
Yeah, I can only say from my experience of 13 years in the product development space, I think we were definitely, if I think back to the Lewis Road days, it was very collaborative. But in saying that, we both gained from sharing, not so much the IP, but from sharing the capabilities within the manufacturing space. There has to be some allowance for that, or otherwise you hit roadblocks and the product can't make it to launch. So I'm probably coming from a lower level discussion than what Grace will talk to, but I definitely need transparency to be able to connect the dots to make some of these product ideas come to life.
Great, cool. All right, that's the questions for now. So we can hand over to Grace.
Hi everyone. So Tamara, do you just want to stop sharing so I can? Oh, and I'll pop my slides up. Yeah, just picking up on that point, I actually think it's sort of interesting how, and I'll talk about it in a bit more detail, but how the ownership of IP has not often been sort of one of the major issues in these agreements, and I think that is because the parties have really come together in a very collaborative way to create a new product that is very much as a public collaboration between the two parties, and I think it happens within that context. And if the collaboration ended, then that product wouldn't exist anymore. And a good example of that is like the peanut slab ice cream by Tip Top. I mean, like there's probably some new IP in there somewhere, but obviously Tip Top couldn't keep making a peanut slab ice cream if they weren't in collaboration with Whittaker's, because it's Whittaker's trademark and Whittaker's goodwill in that product. So I think in these product collaborations, it's often been quite obvious that the product is the subject of the collaboration. So the ownership of IP hasn't been, not that it has never been a topic of conversation, but it hasn't been a major or contentious in a lot of these cases, which is quite interesting. I think it shows the real relationships that the Whittaker's team has built with their collaboration partners, that it has been really collaborative and really working together to make something new and exciting. So I'll just jump in. So I'm just going to talk, I guess, from a legal point of view, how some of these work and what some of the key legal points are that we have dealt with across these collaborations. As an initial point, and I guess this goes a little bit to the protection of IP, usually there's been a non-disclosure agreement, confidentiality agreement put in place at the beginning. So there'll be some initial discussions under that, and that's kind of, so often by the time they come to a more formal collaboration agreement, the concept for the product has already been agreed, and quite a bit of that kind of coming up with the ideas has already happened under an NDA. And then there'll be it's a collaboration or license agreement that actually allows one party to go and make the product and sell it and use the trademarks of the other party in promoting it. So it's that second agreement, the collaboration or license agreement, that I'm going to just talk about a bit more. So one of the first things, I guess, is defining what the products are. In this case, in all these cases, I think the idea for the product has kind of already been agreed before the agreement has been drafted. So that's really helpful. There's usually been something to define, like, that it's going to be this kind of ice cream with a Whittaker's coating, or it's going to be, a Whittaker's block with the LMP flavor in it. But there's always been some more development to happen, and the final formulation that Megan has been doing with the partners. So we usually have some provisions in there around kind of agreeing that final formulation. And these agreements are really, I guess, the overriding principle of these is to just protect the goodwill of both parties in the collaboration. So as Megan was saying, Whittakers really want to make sure that if someone else is manufacturing the product, that the flavor profile of the Whittaker's chocolate is maintained, and the same goes vice versa, where Whittaker's is using someone else's ingredients or products in the collaboration. So usually the other party will have some kind of sign off over the final formulation and testing of the final samples. Probably if you were doing a product collaboration that was not food and beverage based, you'd probably have a bit more detail around the kind of the product development process. We haven't tended to do that in these agreements because I think it just has been really collaborative, and there hasn't been kind of a very fixed process with fixed timelines or anything. But if you were doing more kind of R&D or something like that, you might need to get into a bit more detail about that. The other thing, I guess, about these collaborations, a lot of these collaborations, which Tamara and Megan touched on, was just that they have really grown over time. So we've added products to a lot of these agreements over time. Tip Top had the jelly tip block, and then Tip Top made their original ice creams, which is that picture on the side there. Then they've added further ice cream flavors. Then we then did one coming back the other way, where Whittaker's did a limited run of chocolate bars that were the same flavors as the ice creams. And then we also added the peanut slab chocolate bar, ice cream, which included our license of the peanut slab trademarks and the overall look and feel of the peanut slab packaging. So they have really grown over time, and Pix is another example of that, where they did the chocolate peanut butter, and then we've obviously done the peanut butter and jelly chocolate one. And Lewis Road as well have added a number of other milks, chocolate type milks to their collaboration. So I think that's the sign of a really good collaboration, that you're growing over time. So ownership of IP. So, I mean, generally we've said, both parties own their existing IP, and what I've called the licensing party will license the other party to use its brand and any other IP to make the product. In terms of new IP, we have had a few discussions over time about different things. So one is ownership of recipes. Obviously, a recipe is a copyright work. That particular recipe is, and we've talked a bit about who owns the recipes. We've also had some interesting conversations about the ownership of flavors, like whether one party or both parties own the flavor I guess the flavor combination, or the particular flavor of that block. We've tended to push back on the concept that someone owns a flavor, because it's really just an idea, and obviously unless you sort of patent something, you don't really own an idea. Once it's out in the market, anyone can make a product with that flavor. So as opposed to a particular recipe for a product, we've always taken the view that flavors aren't really owned by anyone. You might have some agreement not to make exactly the same flavor outside of the collaboration, or there might be another reason too. I mean, for example, if you take the jelly tip block, that's obviously directly tied to the Tip Top jelly tip trademark, and so the flavor is tied to the trademark and couldn't really be practically used without a license to use that trademark. So in some cases, the flavors are very particular to the collaboration and wouldn't be used outside of it, but in other cases, they're a bit more general and no one really owns those. The other one we've talked about a bit is who owns like packaging design, because sometimes there are some quite new packaging designs for these collaborations, although similarly to what I was just saying about flavors, I guess, a lot of the packaging design here is directly tied to the collaboration. So like the peanut slab ice cream is a good example of that. Sorry, I'll actually just flick through because I think I've got some examples here. So actually, I think, sorry, sort of jumping around a little bit, but I think someone actually had asked a question about this, about sort of control of use of the trademark. So I think an interesting point is that there's nothing actually to stop someone in going and buying Whittaker's products in the supermarket and then using it in their products. So like restaurants probably do that, right? You see that they might be making a dessert, they might use Whittaker's chocolate in it. They're allowed to do that. There's nothing Whittaker's can do to stop them doing that. But they wouldn't be able to advertise it as Whittaker's chocolate milk or Whittaker's brownie. They could say it was a brownie with Whittaker's chocolate in it, but they wouldn't be able to use Whittaker's as a trademark. So by entering into a collaboration with Whittaker's, they get to buy the chocolate directly from Whittaker's, which has benefits in terms of format and probably, I assume, in terms of price. But they also get, and what is probably the main benefit, is they get to put the Whittaker's brand on their product and in their marketing material. So, and that's kind of the value of the trademark license that's in there. So this is a good example of where the packaging, technically the packaging would be a copyright work and there'd be some IP in it, but it's only ever going to be able to be used in the context of this collaboration because it has the word Bundaberg in big letters on it. It looks like the Bundaberg bottle label, which Bundaberg have protected. So it kind of doesn't matter who owns the copyright in the actual label design because it's only going to be able to really be used in the context of this collaboration. So that's one where I don't think we talked about it at all because it just doesn't, it's not important. This one I think is a different one where this is a distinct packaging that was developed specifically for this collaboration. It doesn't look like any other existing Tip Top ice cream packages. It doesn't look like any existing Whittaker's packaging designs. It's a bespoke work for these ice creams and it was used on the chocolate bars as well. So that was one where there was a bit more discussion about who owned the copyright in that packaging, and probably more importantly, regardless of who owns it, can anyone use that packaging design outside of the collaboration? So that was one where that was more of a question that came up. Yeah, so just going to move on to some other legal terms. Exclusivity. So most of these collaborations have had some amount of exclusivity, either one way or mutual. Both parties have an interest in making the collaboration special and making sure that there's not too much else directly competing with it in the market. So you don't want, one party collaborating with, if you take the Whittaker's perspective, you don't want someone collaborating with Whittaker's and then also collaborating with Cadbury at the same time. It wouldn't be good for Whittaker's, but it also wouldn't be good for the collaboration product because there'd be this direct competitor out there in the market. So yeah, there's generally some level of exclusivity, usually tied, well, in these cases, it's been tied to sort of particular types of products. So chocolate and confectionery is one that we've used on the Whittaker side of things. And obviously you need to make the exclusivity very clear so that the parties can apply it in the future. So some examples. So yeah, I think it's interesting to note because some of these collaborations have been going on for a long time, and for some of them, you know, we have come back to the exclusivity clauses a number of times about, you know, someone's done this or we want to do this, and does that breach the clause? So, you know, they're not clauses that just get put in there and then forgotten. They have really been discussed and applied quite a bit. So it's always interesting to see your drafting come back to you and have to apply it to situations. For the Lewis Road one, I think the wording was something like chocolate milk or related products, and we've had a lot of discussions over the years about what is a related product of chocolate milk. You know, we've had, you know, there's a chocolate liqueur, I think there was an ice cream, and are those related products of chocolate milk? So your drafting can come back to haunt you when you haven't been maybe as specific as you wanted to be. And for the Bundaberg one, we had some interesting discussions about what is a chocolate product, because I think in the past we've said chocolate and confectionery products quite a bit. Bundaberg wanted to be clear about what that meant. Like they were concerned that chocolate covered biscuits weren't chocolate products, which I think, you know, Whittakers were fine with, because we're really thinking about, you know, a chocolate bar, a chocolate block, a wrapped chocolate maybe, but something that's substantially chocolate, not substantially something else. Royalties. So I mean, not every collaboration has royalties, but some of them do, you know, as compensation for the licensing of a trademark, and to make sure that, I guess the purpose of the royalty is to make sure that the party that is not manufacturing and selling the product still gets to share in some of the benefit of the collaboration. Like most licenses, royalties are usually a percentage of net sales value. So that's kind of the invoice price of the product, and you take a percentage of that, as opposed to, say, a percentage of profit, which can be a bit hard to define and hard to calculate, and also can be sort of a bit more easily mucked around with than net sales value. But we've also seen ones that, you know, some don't have royalties, some have fixed fees instead of a kind of an ongoing royalty based on sales. So yeah, that's just one where it's obviously whatever the parties negotiate. Approval rights. So as I was saying at the beginning, the party who's not manufacturing the product wants to have some say and control over the product. That's usually over the formulation or the quality of the product, but also over the marketing material and how their trademarks are being used in that. So those usually run through an approval process. You know, I think the Whittaker's collaborations have been very collaborative, so we haven't had a lot of sort of process around that sort of stuff, but we have obviously included those rights in there so that everything comes back for approval if someone else is manufacturing and selling the products. And then in some cases, you know, depending on who the other party is, you might want more control over like where the product might be sold, or how much of the product might be manufactured, any of those sorts of things if there were particular concerns. And generally the licensing party has to act reasonably, so you're not going to, you know, have it holding up getting the product out to market. Supply terms. So, you know, in most of these collaborations, one party is supplying ingredients to the other party. So that is either Whittaker's selling the chocolate, or the other party selling their ingredient back to Whittaker's. So for the Bundaberg one, and I think Megan mentioned this, they had to produce and package up the liquid ginger brew specifically for Whittaker's because it was a slightly different format or formulation to what they make for their own drinks. So we had quite a bit of negotiation around minimum purchase quantities. What if they manufactured too much and then we didn't need it, and that kind of thing. So sometimes these things get into more detail and sometimes not. Marketing of the product. So generally the person who manufactures and sells the product is in charge of marketing, subject to those approval rights that I talked about earlier. We sometimes have included, ability to collaborate around the launch of the product, and so both parties are sort of pushing that out there. And I think that has happened in most cases, that Whittakers will promote the collaboration product even if it's being sold by Pix or TikTok, just to make sure that there's maximum reach for the launch and be the greatest success possible. Product liability is another one that we've talked about a bit. Obviously, generally, if one party's manufacturing it, then they're responsible for all the product liability. But if ingredients are being supplied by the other party, then they'll usually bear responsibility for those ingredients. Sometimes we have gotten into sort of conversations about what would happen if there was a product recall or that sort of thing. But generally, it's been quite straightforward for these collaborations because one party is, for the most part, wholly responsible for the manufacturing. It's an area where I think if you were thinking about a more technological product or a product where you might be making claims or representations, you might have to get into a bit more detail about what could be said about it. But for the food ones, it's not been a major issue, and I don't think there have been any. I think there have been any problems, so that's good. Territory. So generally, these have been limited to a particular territory. And they've usually started out with a smaller territory, and it's often just been New Zealand, although not all of them. Bundaberg was New Zealand and Australia from the beginning, but quite a few of them have been expanded over time. So the jelly tip chocolate has gone into Australia now, and then on the other side of that tip top collaboration, the ice creams are now being sold in quite a few different places, not just New Zealand. And Australia, I think, was the original territory. And then the term. So, got to think about how long it should be. Some of the Whittakers ones have been quite limited edition products, so those have had quite a short term. Other ones have had kind of a year or two and then rolled over. So some of those ones like Lewis Road that have been going on for a long time tend to just roll over and have become part of the Whittakers stable of products. Again, if you're thinking about a product where there's going to be a lot of development or a lot of investment to get it going, you might have to have a longer term and think more about what would happen if the collaboration wasn't successful, and also termination rights. I mean, we've had discussions about termination rights. The one that we've included sometimes is a right to terminate if the other party is subject to some kind of event that results in bad press. Because obviously if both your brands are on the product and then one of those brands is subject to some kind of public scandal, then you might want to pull that product from the market quite quickly and or require the other party to. Although again, that's one that hasn't arisen in any of these collaborations, which I think have all gone pretty well. So yeah, that was all my slides. Were there any questions there, Anna?
Yeah, there were a few questions that came through. So I guess regarding the exclusivity, does a collaboration with one market player, e.g. peanut butter or milk, mean that it's unlikely to collaborate with another player in the same market?
It's probably more a question for Whittakers. Yeah. I mean, I think in some ways it would probably depend on the type of product as well. But generally, I guess you do want the collaborations have an element of kind of specialness. So it would have to be something a bit different. That's just speaking from my perspective as an outsider, though, not speaking on behalf of Whittakers.
Yeah. Do we have Tamara and Megan on the line still?
Yeah, Tamara, did you have any comment on that question? Oh, sorry, Tamara's coming back.
My apologies, just had to save the computer battery for a second there. I
think we agree with Grace.
Yeah, we agree with Grace. Yeah, we really value our relationships and collaborations, and we see them as something enduring. So we like to kind of maintain, even if it's a one-off limited edition product, we like to maintain those same relationships kind of going forward. So the view would be you know, done a couple products with Pix this year, and
we
we
rely on
certainly
them
look
being
after that
special.
relationship.
Yeah, we want them to be special for the consumer as well.
Yeah.
For their buying experience.
Yeah.
Cool. I guess we'll keep you guys on because there are a couple more questions for you as well. So how do you negotiate the collaboration? Do you buy the product or share profits from the sale? So you kind of touched upon that, Grace, but perhaps we could extend on it.
Yeah, so in these ones, so, well, they all work a little bit differently, to be honest. In a lot of them, one party is supplying some kind of ingredient or product to the other party, and there'd be, you know, they would pay for that. So like when Whittaker supplies chocolate to Tip Top to put on the ice creams, you know, that's a supply arrangement and there's a price paid. And then, as I mentioned, sometimes there's also a royalty that would be separate from that. And that's kind of more around, you know, that's compensation for use of the brand. So that's sharing. I think the question was about sharing of profits. As I said before, we usually do it. It's usually a small percentage of net revenue if there is a royalty. And so in some cases, there'd be both of those things. In some cases, there'd just be one or the other. So in some cases, there hasn't actually been a supply arrangement from the collaboration partner. There has just been a license of IP. Yeah, so they're all a bit different. And yeah, I'm actually not sure. Whittakers tend to handle the actual negotiations. So that's actually something they do. And then we help with advising on them. But as I said, that, you know, these collaboration relationships are really important. And I think the negotiations form part of that. So it's handled very much sort of business to business, those negotiations.
Cool. We've had a couple of questions come through about any challenges or learnings from the collaborative projects. So is there anything that, you know, you've learned from or may not have worked out? Or yeah.
Oh, is this one to Grace or to us?
Oh, to you guys, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Well, I've learned a lot. With each one, you learn something from a technology perspective, because you're getting the chance to play with an ingredient or a product that you haven't played with before. I've learned a lot about beer fermentation. I've learned a lot about gelling. I've learned a lot about milk pasteurization and chilled products. Definitely from my perspective and my job description, I learn lots of valuable expertise, and I continue to build on that. So I very much love the collaboration projects because I'm constantly getting pushed outside my expertise and learning all the time. That's the great thing with product development and food science, is you just, you know, you get to learn all the time with something new and new projects. So I love them from that perspective.
On the brand side, we're always learning as well. I guess my biggest recommendation would be choosing good company to keep. So being really deliberate about who you're choosing to partner with and getting an idea of kind of what each party is going to bring to the project as soon as you can as well, just to really foster that truly kind of collaborative approach right from the beginning, whether it's a product or whether it's a campaign. The more you can kind of work together, the more you're like upfront about stakeholders and internal processes and timelines and that kind of piece, the easier it'll make the whole project.
And every project does seem to have compromises attached to it, doesn't it? Because everybody, each brand or product are passionate about their brand and product. So there's a lot of compromising discussions, but that's where the relationship is really important.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing we've seen from the outside over sort of a number of years now is the work that goes into those relationships. And Whittaker's, you know, we've seen you become a lot more, I guess you've just developed those skills around managing those relationships and having those conversations, and I mean they all seem to have gone pretty well, but that's a skill, right? Handling those relationships and keeping them on track and keeping them collegial.
Yes.
And we've got one more question. It's for the Whittaker's guys. It's reasonably general, but a nice one to end on. So Whittaker's has been around for a long time. What was the turning point to becoming one of the most loved brands?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I mean, from the surface, this year we were awarded New Zealand's most trusted brand for the 10th consecutive year. But it's certainly not kind of a 10 years ago turning point. I think it's the commitment to quality chocolate manufacturing the whole entire time. You know, you're most likely to find Andrew and Brian actually on the factory floor. They're the brothers who lead the company now, and most likely find them on the floor. They're uncompromising kind of in their commitment to quality ingredients and quality beans to bar manufacturing. They're passionate about Porirua, passionate about New Zealand. So I think it's the combination of just a massive passion for quality and for chocolate in the family.
We've always said world-class chocolate made here in Porirua, and that hasn't happened overnight or been an instant change, or I mean, it grows year upon year, but it's always been at our core value in the heart of everything that we do.
Right, that's all the questions from my end.
Okay, well, I think it's just thanks to the Whittakers guys for participating and sharing their stories. It was really, really interesting. So much that I didn't know, and I've worked on a lot of these collaborations, but from the outside, I guess. Yeah, and thanks for everyone for attending. And yeah, if anyone wants any more information or has any feedback, feel free to contact us at AJ Park.